She walks in love like a thunderstorm, debunking myths with style and form. True crime, conspiracies her game. Melissa Jade, remember her name. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Microphone fierce like a roaring lion, unveiling secrets people been hiding. True crime queen of the digital scene, Melissa's got you hooked on her screen. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Murders to cover-ups, nothing misses. Melissa's here to share her guesses. She's got theories big and bold, no stone unturned, no case cold. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. From murders to cover-ups, nothing misses. Melissa's here to share her guesses. She's got theories big and bold, no stone unturned, no case cold. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. 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 She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Bethany.
Hey, Melissa Jade. Hey, everybody.
Oh, my goodness. So I am so sorry because I know I originally had Wade live scheduled, but honestly, Wade can wait because not only were we completely overloaded with so many motions that were unsealed recently, but then in the little bit of few hours that have just passed, we have some, in my opinion, bombshell documents, including the 911 call, the transcript, and text messages, and I could not wait. And I was like, Shay, are you around? We got to switch this. We got to go with this. And she's like, hell yeah. And so no regrets. And thank you so much for malicious intent for 15 months. I can't wait to listen. Thank you. And thank you for 15 months of support. It's lovely seeing you. I'm so excited. If you can't hear, obviously I'm like racing, but I did not peak. Well, like technically I peaked for like 4 lines and that's it. And I cut myself off. So like I am ready.
I know. It's so hard. I was shocked.
I know. Okay. I know. So we're going to just get right into it. So a little bit different along with our missing children because we do have an active Amber Alert. And so I want to get those children out. But real quickly, I want to share, we have a missing adult, family of a friend to the channel. And
Aww.
So I wanted to start with Jordan. This is Jordan Yost. He has been missing from Olathe, Kansas. I think I pronounced that right. And he has been missing since March 3rd, 2025. He is 37 years old. He is 5'7", 175 pounds, bald with brown eyes. Jordan went missing from Olathe, Kansas on March 3rd, 2025 at approximately 11 a.m. Jordan was last seen driving a silver Hyundai Odyssey with a Kansas license plate 056 RRA, which has since been located in Lewisburg, Miami County in Kansas, northbound 69 highway near exit 247, leaving the area of 14100 block of West 101st Place. Jordan is listed as endangered due to statements of self-harm. Jordan is 37 years old. He is 5 foot 7 inches tall, weighs approximately 175 pounds, bald brown eyes, and he does have a beard. He was last seen wearing a green Columbia coat and blue jeans. If you or anyone you know has information regarding Jordan's disappearance, or if you know of his whereabouts, please call the Olathe, Kansas Police Department at 913-971-6363 or the tip hotline at 816-474-8477 or the KBI, which is the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, at 785-296-4017. So here is Jordan. Just please, if you happen to be in the area. No, I think it's pronounced Olathe. And I know it looks like it's pronounced Olathe, but I was told it's pronounced Olathe with an A. So that's why I pronounced it that way. Yes, Michelle. Yes. So I just wanted to get that out there. And if you just happen to be in the area, please definitely be vigilant. Keep your eye out.
Yes.
So prayers or positive vibes, for a safe return of Jordan. Okay.
And Amber,
okay, Christina.
Let's say, Amber, send the missing boy in your area to Melissa so she can show it on one of the lives.
We have active Amber alerts. This is Owen Castellana from Moscow Mills. Is Emo, Missouri? Yes, Missouri. He is 1 year old, brown hair, brown eyes, 1 foot 6 inches tall, 25 pounds. We have the Missouri Amber Alert. The female suspect made threats to the children and left the residence on March 4th with them. No contact has been made with the children or suspect in the last 48 hours. Vehicle was last seen in Bloomington, Illinois on 3/4/2025. We have a Chrysler Pacifica 2023 gray, license plate RK8H5Z. And then we have our associated children here. So let's go with Eden. We have Eden here. Castellana, March 4th, 2025. She is 6 years old. And then we have Ryan Castellana, 9 years old. And then we have Lauren here, who is 33 years old. So if you or anyone who knows information on their whereabouts, please don't hesitate. Call 911 or the Moscow Mills Police Department at 636-528-6100. Hey, Nika. Thanks for 20 months. Glad to be here. We're so happy to have you here. Welcome, everyone. It's so lovely. Thank you, Jennifer, for 14 months. Thank you for all you do. It absolutely is. But it's really lovely when there's been so many times now. Well, when I say so many times, like maybe 6 times, but those times stick out to me where we've had a safe return of a missing child that we've covered. And that is such a good feeling because we cover such dark topics, and so many non-happy endings. So when we get feedback, hey, the missing child was found, it's just such a good feeling. It really is.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sorry. Did you have to say something?
No, go for it.
Shay. Let's see. Okay. So in the last few hours, obviously our plan for this live originally, part 7, is we were going to focus on the state's responses to all of the limines. But we got to wait. Why do we have to wait? Because we've had more motions that have been posted to the docket. And you see those little red new? We have the text messages, and we have the 911 call transcript. And I don't know which one to start. Well, we have a few others, but my eyes are going to that. Yeah. Do you guys want to start with the 911 call transcript or do you want to start with the text messages? Maybe we should start with the text messages just because my mind always goes for chronological order, and the text would have come before the call. I know, Mal, and they're saying 911.
What about a 1 for 911 and then a 2 for text and chat?
Of course, Jessica. Thank you for showing Jordan. He's an incredible guy who's extremely first of all, thank you. You didn't have to send a super chat, but absolutely, of course, and hopefully, someone happens to be in the area and I can see something and get him home safely. Prayers for a safe return.
Often people overlook adults, but they're just as important.
Yeah. Sophia is still missing. Julie, every day she is an active Amber Alert on the top of the NCMEC website. So obviously every day when I go to pick out a child, I see her up there. And yeah, it's very sad. Oh, please, K-Wags. Okay, so in order the timeline, all right, we're definitely going through both. So were there more 1s or 2s?
It's a pretty good mix of it. It looked like it started to favor 2s, which would have been text.
All right, let's go chronological. I'm going to go chronological because it makes more sense. Let's start with the text, and then we'll do the 911 transcript, because the text would have come prior to the 911 call, and I feel like it'll help give us context when we're looking at the transcript to know what happened hours before.
Okay.
Good? Okay.
Oh.
Text messages and testimony. Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, you guys. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I have anxiety only because it's been years and we followed this case so closely, and to finally be getting information like this, I really don't know what to do. It's too much. Thank you, Tess, for 29 months. So freaking excited to hear you fabulous ladies read all the new info. I only peeked a tiny bit beforehand. I try not to peek. You guys know I like to react in real time. If I would have waited, I probably would have peeked, but once Shay said we're good to go for tonight, I'm like, all right, then I'm not gonna peek.
Well, and then last night, we found out that Bethany went downstairs and Dylan went downstairs and slept in Bethany's room. So that was pretty shocking.
To say the least.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely, Jennifer. And we had just gone over, and so it's nice and fresh in all of our minds for anyone who was here. We had just gone over the full original PCA. And thank you, Mama Turn. Mama Turn gifted 5 memberships. Please make sure to thank her. Welcome to all of our new members. Thank you all so much for being here. Hit the thumbs up if you already haven't. We are about to unpack a lot of new information surrounding the Idaho 4. And so let's do it. I know, Dana C. Okay, hi, Lady F&T Bogart. That in the very beginning. Yep, Mallory. And he saw Dylan. I'm still hung up on that because I always believed Bryan saw Dylan, but we didn't just get that information. We got that information with a vacuum-like object in his hand, and now a firefighter which kind of leads me to believe they're talking about cover. He most likely was wearing coveralls. And thank you, Jessica, for the membership, and 2112. Thank you for 10 memberships. That's incredibly kind. Welcome, and thank you so much. All of our new members, thank you. You guys are awesome. Okay. You ready, Shay?
Yes.
Yes, Andrea, because she said he looked at her, but he continued he did not walk in her direction. Like he didn't, even though he looked at her, he didn't continue to walk towards her, and he didn't say anything. And she knows even more so that he looked at her because she was able to see those eyebrows, which made sense to me. I always said that, right? That even in order for her to get something as specific as that, he would have most likely had to have been facing her. It goes with my theory, but then there's a lot that I'm like, okay, I didn't think about that either. So I just have to process all of this. Thank you, Katrina, for 8 months. Ready? Hell yeah. Hell
And
yeah.
didn't she say like roughly 3 feet away is what her estimate was?
Which aligns with that latent shoe print.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Huh?
Let's do it.
Okay.
What?
So, no, it's okay. We have originally sealed, cross out, redacted, states, motion, and limine, the text messages and testimony. Fuck, I forgot my notebook. Do you have, well, all right, I have my phone. I'll jot it down on my phone. So we have come now, state of Idaho, by and through the Leda County prosecuting attorney respectfully moves the court an order in limine allowing the state to admit the text messages of Dylan Mortensen on November 13th and the testimony from Dylan and Bethany regarding their conversations with each other. The phone records were discovered on the hard drive Dylan's iPhone extraction provided on April 5th, 2023, and State's Exhibit 18 from the grand jury record. So the testimony of Dylan and Bethany were provided to the defense as part of the grand jury record. We have State's Exhibit S2 and S3. Standard of admissibility and general testimony that is hearsay is excluded at trial. However, there are exceptions to this rule. 2 firmly rooted exceptions are 1, Idaho Rule of Evidence 8031, present sense impression, a statement describing or explaining an event or condition made while or immediately after the declarant perceived it, or 2, Idaho Rule of Evidence 8032, the excited utterance, a statement relating to a startling event or condition made while the declarant was under the stress of excitement that it caused. The requirements of the federal version of the present sense impression and the excited utterance are best stated in U.S. v. Mitchell, which I don't need to go through. So both exceptions require that the declarant personally perceives the event or condition about which the statement is made. In addition, both have temporal limitations which limit admissibility. Under the present sense impression exception, the declaration must be substantially contemporaneous with the event in question. The fundamental premise underlying the present sense impression exception is that, quote, substantial contemporaneity of event and statement minimizes unreliability due to the declarant's defective recollection or conscious fabrication. Courts have given broader temporal limitations for excited utterances. Okay. They're just citing case law. So there is no requirement within the language of IRE 8031 that the declarant be excited or emotionally affected by the event or condition in order to fall within the present sense exception. But if so, then the statement can overlap with the excited utterance exception. Argument. A. Dylan's phone records contained in Exhibit S1 for November 13th and Bethany's testimony, Exhibit S2, as to what Dylan told her should be allowed at trial. In the case at bar, starting on November 13th, 2:10:29, I'm assuming AM.
Yeah.
Dylan sends a text to EG, the Uber driver. Okay.
Which was different.
Yes. Dylan sends a text message to EG, the Uber driver, to inquire if he is driving. The state submits this text message exchange is not hearsay because it will not be offered for the truth of the matter asserted, EG's driving status. Instead, it would be offered to show a timeline for the night, i.e., Dylan was awake and texting at 2:10:29. From 4:19:07 to 4:21:50, Dylan attempts to call Bethany, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie. All calls were unanswered. That's what we thought, Shay.
Yes.
The records of these calls are not hearsay, as they each do not meet the definition of a statement, quote, oral assertion, written assertion, or nonverbal conduct intended as an assertion under IRE 801A. So from 422 to 424, so this would be right after, okay? So she tried calling them all, no answer. Then 422 to 424 a.m., Dylan and Bethany send the following text messages. I'll be Dylan, you be Bethany.
Okay.
Dylan to Bethany. No one is answering. I'm really confused right now. Dylan to Kaylee. Kaylee, what's going on?
Bethany to Dylan. Yeah, dude. WTF. Xana was wearing all black.
Dylan to Bethany. I'm freaking out right now. No, it's like a ski mask almost.
Bethany to Dylan. STFU, so shut the F up. Actually.
Dylan to Bethany. Like he had something over his forehead and little and mouth. Now again, pause. She is intoxicated here. There's a lot of typos. But she's saying he had something over his forehead and a little over his mouth. I'm so freaked out right now. I'm not kidding. I'm so freaked out.
Bethany to Dylan. So am I.
Dylan to Bethany. My phone is going to die. Fuck.
Bethany to Dylan. Come to my room. Run. Down here.
So let's pause for 1 second because there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm. Which goes with that article I sent you that I was like, oh my Lord, with the Ethan's family's
That's
claims.
exactly what I thought of. Do you remember the aunt on Reddit?
Mm-hmm. So those screenshots of the Reddit are in that article.
Are they?
Yeah, that's why I sent you the article, because I had a few of them, but not all of them in their natural state. They're like deleted now, like deleted users.
Right. Okay. We heard, and this was just hearsay, we had heard for a long time ago, Dylan attempted to call the surviving roommates. That made sense anyway, that she picked up the phone and tried to call them all. And we speculated from the beginning, nobody answered besides Bethany. Now we got that confirmation. I am shocked to find out Dylan went to Bethany's room. She went downstairs. We know now they fell asleep.
That's what I'm not shocked about, though.
Why?
And because that's what I felt all along, even though understanding that her encounter seems to be more, I don't know how to say it. It's her encounter was more than I expected it to be, so that's kind of what throws me off on her going downstairs and the delayed call. But at the time when everything came out, my assumption was that she ran downstairs because of how those first like press conferences went.
Right. And now we have a little bit more clarity on they were on that first floor, but then it was a bombshell to find out Dylan was on the second floor, right? Now it makes a little bit more sense, wordplay. But the issue and when I say issue, let me be very clear. Not victim bashing them. I'm unclear with it. But as more information comes out, it becomes more and more clear. I guess I'm a little confused by going to sleep. But now, honestly, now that I know Dylan wasn't alone and she was with Bethany, I can understand it a little bit better because I'm sure Bethany convinced her. I'm sure everything's fine, right? Because Bethany didn't see it. She's only going by what Dylan said. And you could tell they're speculating, well, Xana was wearing all black, so it's fine. They're probably just passed out asleep. Who knows? A lot of people were in and out of the house.
So, okay, like I think that we also have to think mindset. This is college kids. They feel safe in their space. And hindsight's 2020. Like when you're what you think you would do, your age now. So I kind of took it as they were there to kind of comfort each other, but also they're I know this sounds silly, but like Greek life stuff, they do all kinds of different like in night like things like I kind of envision like what if they thought it was like one of the fraternity boys coming over or they didn't really know what it was, like they were sneaking in gonna grab Ethan and go do something, I don't know, like my mind just kind of went like they never would think the worst of it. And then when reading like the Xana was wearing all black, she was wearing black that day. So was Bethany just confirming that? Because those are just kind of things that are going through my mind. Sorry, just spitfiring here.
No, absolutely. And you know that lifestyle much better than I do. And thank you so much, Allie B, for 2 months of support. Yes, there were two survivors, Dylan and Bethany. So here's the thing. And absolutely, Mallory, they did not imagine the worst thing. Right, ATS. They didn't imagine people were dead. And I understand we see that run, but the way I perceive that run, I do not think Bethany thought there was and this is just my opinion. So far, Bethany probably did not seem concerned at all. It was Dylan who was concerned because it was Dylan who had this interaction, right? And so I feel like when Bethany wrote that, she was probably like, come to my room, run, come on. Like if you're scared, come on, run down here. I think I have more of an issue that she did run. Because that backsliding door was left open.
But they
And
said she couldn't see that from her room,
she
remember?
couldn't see it from her room, so she could not verify he walked out, but then she left her room.
Well, wait, like think timeline. When did that car peel out? Like that's because I'm
420.
looking. So after the car like leave, they hear a peel out. I I'm curious still, like if Bethany was looking out the window, like if she
She
could have
wouldn't
saw
have seen
anything.
it, even if she was looking out her back window.
But if they heard somebody pull out, then the timing, like just to run down here, that makes sense to me.
If now listen, your senses become, sometimes you lose your senses in that state of trauma, in that state of adrenaline. And it's totally possible she wouldn't have even heard that while also her brain processing, what did I just see? You know what I mean? Maybe, absolutely, maybe not.
And I mean, I also think that she was a little spooked, and if her phone was about to die, like I wouldn't want to be alone. I would go down with my friend.
Which makes sense to why they called 911 from Bethany's phone. That's to say if they didn't have the same phone and the same charger.
Right.
Um, well, no, the Uber driver wasn't just there, but the DoorDash was.
Yeah. Oh, I did listen to a little bit of Anjanette Levy's like earlier, and she said she actually had a one-on-one talk with the Uber driver, Melissa, and I thought this was really interesting and I wanted to share with you. But
Definitely.
he said that told Anjanette that he felt a lot of guilt, that he felt like he drove Maddie and Kaylee to their death. And it like
Mhm.
broke my heart. Like he was a friend of theirs, I guess he's part of the Greek community, and that was I don't know.
The Uber driver was earlier. They got Kaylee and Maddie had an Uber ride home. They were intoxicated. All of them were intoxicated. Dylan was intoxicated. Absolutely impaired judgment here. Um, but that was earlier in the night. I don't know, Harlot. So, all right, let's continue. Let's see what else we have here.
Okay. You want me to read?
Yeah, go ahead.
All of the above declarations are present since impressions and excited utterances. This is supported by Dylan's grand jury testimony, where she indicates she just witnessed a startling event, i.e., heard noises in residence and saw an unknown male in the residence. The declarations indicate both Bethany and Dylan are trying to make sense of the startling event contemporaneously or immediately following the startling event, i.e., no time for reflection or fabrication. See Dylan's grand jury testimony attached. At 4:24, 39, Dylan calls Ethan Chapin, calls unanswered. This phone record, like the other record of calls, is not a statement pursuant of IRE 801. Dylan and Bethany continue to text at 4:24 and 58. Dylan texts Bethany, "I'm screwed though." And Bethany responds at 4:25:16, "Yeah, I know, but it's better than being alone." Again, both statements are admissible as present sense impressions and excited utterances, as they are describing an event or their state of mind and our spontaneous reactions to that event rather than the result of reflective thought.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I'll pause
So
there.
the
So
last
call.
text, okay, 4:24:27, Dylan and Bethany were texting. Then 4:24:39, so she immediately, before she even goes downstairs, she tries to call Ethan now. Remember, she didn't try to call Ethan. She tried to call all the girls. Nobody answered. This is the first time she's trying to call Ethan now.
Mhm.
Call unanswered. Dylan and Bethany then she immediately texts again. 4:24:58. Dylan texts Bethany right after. "I'm screwed though." And again, you see those typos. She is intoxicated. She self-admittedly was very intoxicated. Bethany responds,
Oh, I'm scared. Maybe that's what she's meaning. I'm scared though.
"Oh,
I'm
I'm
scared.
scared though." Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Then
Yeah.
she
Good call, chat.
responds 18 seconds later. Bethany responds, "Yeah, I know, but it's better than being alone." Okay. And sorry, you guys, I'm absorbing it.
Mhm.
Oh, respectfully, what kind of question is that, Michelle? Let's focus on the topic, please. I'm trying to absorb this as we're doing this, okay? Okay. So then we have, okay, so 4:27. Okay, so a little over 2 minutes later. Go ahead.
At 4:27, Dylan calls Kaylee, call unanswered. And at 4:28, Dylan calls Kernodle, calls unanswered. These are not statements pursuant to IRE 801A.
Okay, so she most likely did not leave her room yet. This is all setting the stage for me. She's still in that room, which tells me she didn't want to leave right away, right? Hold on, let me keep calling, which again, it's showing me the difference between Dylan and Bethany, which makes sense. Bethany didn't experience anything, as far as we know. Dylan's not walking right out of her room yet. And you have to remember this key part. Murphy was still barking. Murphy was barking, was it 20 or 30 minutes after the suspect left? So this had to have been building anxiety with Dylan. I believe she would have heard Murphy barking.
Right.
So she
And
didn't leave the room yet. She's like, all right, let me call. And she tries to call them all again.
Mhm.
Thank you, Allie B. Why did they call and text each other versus going to their rooms to check on them? It's common sense. The activity is insane to me. Well, thank you for the support. So again, there's so much to this case, okay? There's a lot of information. And she saw someone in her house, but this was also common. I think the only thing that made it uncommon was thuds, noises, perception of crying, and then you see this person and she's intoxicated. It's not unusual that someone you don't know would be in this house. It's unusual that they had a mask on and they didn't say a word, and all of that together. She was scared. I do not think it's weird that she didn't physically go to the rooms after being scared. That doesn't surprise me. Bethany was the only one who answered. That's the only reason she felt comfortable to going to Bethany's room. I don't take issue with any of that yet. The issue I have, and when I say issue, meaning I don't feel fully comfortable yet, is the amount of time that passed before calling 911 and not calling 911, summoning friends. But again, I'm reserving my judgment. I'm just not there yet. But as far as not going to check on it, I don't blame her. She was freaked the fuck out and none of them are answering.
Yes, Allie. Dylan was
Yes.
intoxicated. And also, when we read over yesterday some of the defense's motions in limine, because we haven't done the states yet, because they each have their own motions in limine that they're filing, they went over, like, apparently Dylan shared that she had a strong interest in true crime and she's had nightmares and terrors since she was young. So, I mean, just to
Lucid
this
dreaming.
lucid dreams, yeah. So I could imagine maybe if she could, like, am I having one of those things? Like, I drink a lot, man, because they had a football game that day before,
The
Saturday night.
lucid dreaming was weird. I will say she got specific as far as lucid dreaming and even detailed scenarios of being kidnapped. And I do think that that's going to be an issue down the line, but I'm not trying to jump too far out with that because I know we're trying to stick with this. But she had made statements, but I also think that that may have been her trauma brain trying to
Reason.
absorb what the fuck happened.
And perhaps, like, she has had therapy for those dreams in her past. Like, there's things that could, validate that. But I think, the prosecution had said it well that it wasn't a dream because the reality is what these 4 lives are gone. So, and I don't think it was like her eyewitness testimony so much. It was so big. It's this data, it's this text data, and it does follow along from what we have understood and little information that's been shared.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue.
Okay.
So, okay.
We should be at the
Yeah.
432.
Mm-hmm. So at 4:32, Dylan sends a text to Kaylee. I do not believe she and again, I don't believe she would have left her room yet. 4:32, Dylan sends a text to Kaylee stating, quote, "Please answer," end quote. This statement is a present sense impression. It shows Dylan's perception of events and an excited utterance, a spontaneous reaction to that event, rather than the result of a reflective thought. The next morning, this is what's interesting to me. Okay. The next morning, Dylan sends the following text messages starting at 10:23. Now, you guys, 911 was called 11:58 a.m. So 10:23. Dylan to Kaylee, please answer. Dylan to Maddie, are you up? Dylan to Kaylee, are you up? Sorry, I'm getting a little sad here because even though I don't understand like the time, this had to have been, I don't even know what word to use.
Horrific.
Just like in the matter of an hour, everything's about to change. Like it had already changed. She just didn't know it yet,
Right.
And to know what the reality was on the 2 floors above them, they didn't know. I'm sure they could not have even imagined that was what. Sorry.
I don't think that's where your mind goes.
So please answer. Are you up? Are you up? These text messages are not hearsay because they will not be introduced for the truth of the matter asserted. Even if deemed hearsay, they are allowable as present sense impressions as they reflect a consistency and continuation of Dylan's text messages from the night prior and reflect her then perception of what was then occurring, waking up and realizing that she had not heard from her roommates. 11:39, Dylan has a text exchange with her father, but let me pause. Clearly she had a charger. I don't know if she brought the charger or they had the same phone, but her phone was charged, okay? 11:39, Dylan has a text exchange with her father. Wow. Okay. These statements are not hearsay as they will not be introduced for the truth of the matter asserted, but instead to show a timeline for the morning. At 11:50, this is 8 minutes before 911 was called, Dylan receives a text message from Jay stating, "Bro."
So would that be Hunter Johnson?
Or Jack? I don't know if Jay is representing the last name or I don't know. Okay. It was 11:50 receives a text message. It would make more sense, Johnson, because this would be the time where friends were there.
It is. His EA is his girlfriend, Emily.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so 11:50, Dylan receives a text message from Hunter Johnson stating, quote, "Bro." This text message will not be introduced for the truth of the matter asserted. At 11:50, Dylan calls EA. This phone record is not a statement pursuant. Dylan receives a text message from Jay at 11:51:01, which is 3 seconds after the first, and a vandal alert at 1:04:01. They're jumping. Okay. These texts are not hearsay because they will not be introduced for the truth of the matter asserted, but instead to show a timeline for the morning. Okay, so before we move on to Dylan and Bethany's testimony from grand jury,
So
how were friends summoned? It's not giving me that.
So I would assume maybe Hunter and Emily are together.
Yeah.
Hunter texts her. Dylan calls Emily. And then she receives that other message. And then he's at the house by then. We'll get into the 911 call. So that would explain the gap.
A vandal alert is an alert that goes off for all of the campus students when there is something they need to know. So in this case, a vandal alert had gone off. That was it actual homicide? What did the students get notified? Lockdown?
Yeah.
It was like a lockdown alert.
I got it on Twitter. Let me grab it.
Which is one of the things that I said, Kohberger, why I believe he returned the next morning is because not only does he know Dylan saw him because he saw her, he fully anticipated 911 was already most likely called. And then the next morning, he's sitting there, no vandal alerts, nothing on the news, nothing at all. And he did a drive-by because curiosity got the best of him. But that's just my theory.
So I have the second alert, and the second alert that went out said a vandal alert, Moscow PD is investigating a homicide on King Road near campus. And it might not be a second alert, it might be the first one, but that's one of the alerts that went out that day.
Homicide initially, I think it was a lockdown alert, and they didn't. I might be wrong though. Does it say what time that was?
Yeah, it's from University of Idaho from their Twitter page. It's at 4:07 p.m. my time.
3 hours later. So the first one, I don't believe at all said homicide. It was just a lockdown alert.
Okay.
Which makes sense. I don't anticipate they wrote homicide in that.
Right.
But the first one went out at 1:04.
Okay, so the first one said that students are being told to shelter in place and avoid the area.
Yeah. He went to a surrounding campus though, Jessica. So as far as I know, like all of them kind of are on that alert system, right? WSU students got it too.
So no, I can't confirm that right now.
Okay. So Dylan and Bethany's testimony, it says the state anticipates that both Dylan and Bethany will testify at trial. The state intends to ask each witness about statements made to them on November 13th. This testimony should substantively replicate the testimony they provided at the grand jury proceedings. The state submits that statements from both Dylan and Bethany to each other are allowable hearsay because they are present sense impressions and or excited utterances. You want to read previous adjudication?
Judge John Judge has previously ruled that the text messages and statements of Dylan to Bethany are present sense impressions and excited utterances, holding both the text messages and the testimony of Bethany as to what Dylan told her were admissible as exceptions to the hearsay rule. Sealed order denying motion to dismiss, indictment on grounds of bias, grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct. So next says Dylan's phone records were contained in Exhibit S1 for November 13, 2022. Bethany's testimony contained in Exhibit S2 are allowable at trial under Crawford, under IRE 803, present sense impressions, yada, yada, yada. Any statement found outside of the above exceptions to hearsay are non-testimonial for purposes of Crawford analysis. And then it goes on to say the state, if we scroll down, it says the state submits if any of the declarations made are deemed testimonial, both Dylan and Bethany will testify at trial anyway. Then the conclusion states, based on above cited authority, the state respectfully requests the court's approval in limine of admission of text messages from Dylan on November 13, 2022, and the testimony from Bethany Funk regarding what Dylan told her on November 13, 2022. And then exhibits are redacted and sealed.
Okay.
Whoa, it's a lot to process.
It's a lot. Sorry, guys. I'm just taking a moment before moving on to the 911 transcript because I need to absorb. So just quick recap for my timeline purposes because this is the way my brain works. Two 10 a.m. Dylan sends a text to the Uber driver to inquire if he's driving. Then she wakes up, and from 4:19 to 4:21 a.m., and that was the time. And I don't want to say Kohberger, I have to stop myself. The suspect is seen fleeing from the scene, okay? So that would have been right after he walked past her and she went into the room. Dylan attempts to call Bethany, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie. All four girls don't answer. Seconds later, she texts Dylan. No one is answering. I'm really confused right now. Dylan to Kaylee. Kaylee, what's going on? Okay, see, what we're missing here is an answering of the call. Bethany already knows what Dylan's talking about. They're leaving out Bethany called Dylan back. Do you see how it's already picking up without context with Bethany? There was communication between them.
Right.
We
And
just don't know what.
yeah, those exhibits are sealed right now.
They may be only including Dylan's calls going out, but may not have included the call coming back in from Bethany. But they already clearly spoke because it's picking up mid-context.
Okay. And the timestamp on the video of suspect vehicle when leaving is 4:20:47.
Yes. Okay, no one is answering. I'm really confused. Dylan to Kaylee. Kaylee, what's going on? Bethany to Dylan with an unknown communication there of whether it was a call. I feel like if it was text, it would have said that. But okay, either way, they spoke a little bit, very short period, because you look at the times we're dealing with. So it would have been a very quick conversation. But Bethany to Dylan, yeah, dude, what the fuck? Xana was wearing all black. So that's not Dylan, guys, because I saw a comment say, well, wouldn't she know Dylan, like Xana with the bushy eyebrows? It wasn't Dylan who said that. It was Bethany who proposed. Maybe it was Xana. She was wearing all black. Clearly just going off of what Dylan shared with her.
But it says all calls were unanswered.
Yes. So unless Bethany called her back.
Okay.
You know what I mean? The initial call may have gone unanswered and then she could have called back.
Okay, because they only got Dylan's phone extraction and they're using Bethany as hearsay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I follow you. Yeah. Okay.
No, but she did, Allie. That's what I'm trying to say. You have to separate Dylan from Bethany. Dylan saw him. Bethany didn't. So imagine I call Shay. She's downstairs. I'm upstairs. I'm freaking out because I saw someone in a figure clad in black. And I'm saying, I don't know, I'm freaking out. Nobody's answering. This is what I saw. All I saw was all black. And Shay's like, all right, yeah, but like ATS was here earlier and she was wearing black. Maybe you saw her, She didn't know. She was just trying to calm Dylan down. Dylan was the one who would have known, no. This wasn't Xana, right? This was, they were a little bit taller than me and it was a guy for sure. Right, exactly, K-Wags, exactly. Because she really wouldn't have known. Listen, I don't know what Dylan's personality was. Is she someone who is very dramatic or very paranoid in general? I don't know what those dynamics were. But again, it wasn't unusual for people to be in the house. It wasn't unusual. So I could understand if Bethany didn't experience any of the sounds and the thuds and all of the other accumulation of things that led up to Dylan's heightened sense of nervousness and anxiety, I could understand why she'd be like, yo, it's probably nothing, Xana was wearing black, trying to play it off. So Dylan says, I'm freaking out right now. No, it's like a ski mask almost. So she's trying to say to Bethany, no, this wasn't just black outfit. This person was wearing a ski mask. Bethany, shut the fuck up. Actually, Dylan, like he had something over his forehead and a little over the mouth. I'm not kidding. I am so freaked out. Now Bethany saying, so am I. Dylan saying, my phone is going to die. Fuck. Bethany says, come to my room. Run down here. It doesn't seem that Dylan left immediately. But again, Murphy is barking at this point. Murphy continued to bark well after the suspect left. So then Dylan tries to call Ethan. This is the first time she's trying to call Ethan now. He doesn't answer. Then Dylan and Bethany text more. Dylan says, I'm scared though. And Bethany responds, yeah, I know, but it's better than being alone. 4:27, I still don't believe Dylan left that room yet. Calling Kaylee, she doesn't answer. Called Xana again, does not answer. Then she sends a text to Kaylee, please answer. Then the next morning, after we know she did eventually go down, don't know specifically how long she waited, but she eventually went down to Bethany. Then 10:23 a.m., Dylan to Kaylee, please answer. Dylan to Maddie, are you up? Dylan to Kaylee, are you up? Then 11:39 a.m., she's texting with her dad. Doesn't say what she says. But 11:50, now we're 8 minutes prior to 911 being called by Bethany's phone. Bethany's phone calls 911. 11:50, Dylan gets a text from Hunter Johnson stating, bro. And I have to believe that most likely was the moment Hunter pushed open that door, allegedly, of Xana's room and found what he found. 11:58, 3 seconds later, Dylan calls Emily, which is Hunter's girlfriend. Then Dylan receives a text from Hunter. It would have been 6 seconds after he sent bro. It doesn't say what those text messages are, but it's most likely what he found, right? He typed bro. 6 seconds later, he sends another text, and they didn't state what that text was. And then the vandal alert at 1:04, roughly a little over an hour after 911 was called. Friends being summoned.
It's
If
Emily
it
and Hunter.
happened from Dylan's phone, I believe that they would have noted that, but then excluded what it was. The same way it's noted she had an exchange with her dad, but they didn't include what it was. I believe it would have been from Bethany's phone.
Maybe.
Unless they went out, now that we know they were both on that first floor, unless they went out and they just didn't go up on the upper 2 levels. I
have a strong suspicion that Hunter will testify.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you want to?
I don't know, Nanya. And I thought about that, but I didn't want to be too picky on my commentary about like the bro. But I also know it's a different generation. I don't know.
And I think Emily lived right across the street in those apartments. So maybe the bro is like before they get over here. Maybe when Dylan calls Emily, she's like, hey, something weird going on. Can you guys come over here real quick? And they could just walk across the street.
Look at the time. You really think so? Look at the time frame, though. The time frame, this would have been right. They had to have been there already. I mean, unless they were right across the street, but like.
Yeah, they were.
I know, but that's really leaving no time for a reaction. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
No, I think that was the moment, because 6 seconds later, he sends another text message and they did not include that, which tells me that has specific information within it, like what he saw.
Yeah, I'm going to look at this little article.
And I'm so sorry, guys. I'm like, I know I'm like pausing here, but like it's a lot to take in. No, I know, absolutely, Nanya. No, I know, and neither am I. But I've heard like, bro. Now I couldn't imagine using that in a text, but that's me, you know.
So according to that article, it says when questioned about who did call the police, Ethan's sister added that the 911 caller was the friend who went in because Dylan called him to come over because she was scared from what she heard in the night. He went to Xana and Ethan's room first, then called 911. Why Dylan or Bethany didn't call the police once is the question.
So
that's according to Ethan's sister-in-law.
Right. So for anyone who isn't familiar or may not have followed everything, this is what we know to be true but can't confirm. what Shay just read. We know that friends were summoned to the residence prior to 911 being called. That originally came out in the press conferences. It was later, unofficially, it came out that Hunter Johnson, Ethan's friend, one way or another, went in, and allegedly it was a Ashley Banfield interview. The door was shut to Xana's room. That's the second floor. Okay, Kaylee and Maddie were on the third floor. And he had to push open the door. And behind the door, we know Xana was on the floor. And we don't specifically know where Ethan was. Believe it was the bed. And then a 911 call was made from Bethany's phone, not from Bethany, but Bethany's phone. So we don't know, we weren't able to confirm exactly that it was Hunter, but likely, because the source is credible. But we don't really know how were they summoned, why were they there. He has a triplet, Hunter, not the same. There's Hunter Chapin and Hunter Johnson, but Hunter Chapin was there, right?
Right. And I am not certain how Hunter and their other triplet sibling, Maisie, were made aware, but they came over to the house because I believe that was the fifth vehicle that was pulled into the drive. So that's why the Chapins had mentioned that they had the two vehicles that were impounded for evidence because Hunter and Maisie drove over. And
So
I
now
remember
that,
hearing them talk about that on an interview when they were waiting to get some of Ethan's stuff back that was like in his car, like his golf clubs and things like that they wanted.
right. And so now that we're looking at this, we're getting like those little pieces, and my brain's trying to piece it together. So what we're missing here is friends being summoned. What does that mean? I don't think it's likely that it happened from Dylan's phone. I think that they would have included it, but maybe. But more likely that it was either friends were summoned from Bethany's phone, or again, they all lived very close to one another, and Bethany and Dylan were on the ground floor facing the front of the house. It may have been, because summoned could be verbally summoned. We don't know. So we're missing that portion, and we're missing the text message from Jay at 11:51:01, minutes before 911 was called. Okay. Maybe we'll get more information in the 911 transcript.
Oh, sure.
What?
I was just saying for sure.
Oh, I thought you said, oh shit.
No, for sure. I like going back and like comparing to what we heard then versus now. So it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to leave the other one up for now to jump back and forth, but let's... Right. Allegedly, Annie, right. I'm sorry, I was just trying to catch up on comments.
No, you're okay. I need to make sure my daughter got in the shower. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. So we have the state's motion in limine 911 call. Oh my God. Like, I can't believe we're finally getting stuff. So they're respectfully moving the court for an order in limine, allowing the state to admit the recording and transcript of the 911 call to Whitcomb on November 13th, 2022. The 911 recording was discovered as AV02, and the transcript was discovered as Bates XYZ. Facts. The facts pertinent to the issue raised by this motion can be found in the attached excerpts from the grand jury transcript, the 911 recording, and the transcript of the 911 call. Argument A. The statements on the 911 call are hearsay but fall within firmly rooted hearsay exceptions and should be allowed. In general, testimony that is hearsay is excludable at trial. However, there are many exceptions to this rule. 2 firmly rooted exceptions are 1, Idaho Rule of Evidence 8031, which again, we go through the present sense impression, and then Rule 8032, which is the excited utterance. I already went through on the text messages what those mean, so it's already familiar. We don't have to go over those again. So, calls to 911 can also be deemed present sense impressions and or excited utterances. It references the case law. Okay. So in the case at bar, most of the declarations made were present sense impressions. H.J. Hunter Johnson located, there we go. Hunter Johnson located the unresponsive body of Xana Kernodle and informed Bethany and Dylan to call 911. Right there. There we go. I'm sorry, I just have to pause there because again, the impact is hitting me. Hunter Johnson located the unresponsive body of Xana Kernodle. Xana, you guys, again, was on the floor as soon as you open that door. Her body was most likely somewhat up against the door, and we heard as soon as he opened the door, her body would have been there. So he informed Bethany and Dylan, call 911. Emily, Hunter's girlfriend, was present at the time. All declarants personally perceived the event, i.e., Kernodle unresponsive. There we go with the person unresponsive on the 911 call. Wow. Okay. The majority of the declarations were describing to dispatcher Carolina Calvin what they were perceiving, i.e., present tense impressions. Those statements relate to Kernodle being passed out and not waking up. The declarations were made immediately after Hunter Johnson discovered Kernodle's body. You guys, when that 911 call went in, it was for an unresponsive person. And everyone speculated it was one of the surviving roommates who passed out. All of this stuff. No. It seemed like they only saw Xana at that point. And that's what it goes out as.
It kind of goes along with the speculation that I heard that Hunter was trying to protect everybody from what he witnessed and not allow others to go in. So that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but
And
it says all declarants personally perceive the event. Kernodle unresponsive. That implies all 4 of them. Now, whether or not they kind of trailed behind Hunter and kind of stayed back a little bit, and you know what I mean? Maybe not literally, but it says all declarants personally perceived the event, i.e. Kernodle unresponsive. Majority of the declarations were describing to the dispatcher what they were perceiving. Kernodle being passed out, not waking up. That implies more than just Hunter. Now, again, whether or not they
the person being in
saw,
the home, though, like they're also describing what happened last night.
No, but this is specifically Kernodle. It keeps doing IE, Kernodle unresponsive. They're specifically talking about that.
Maybe, I'm sorry, I was a paragraph down. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, Harlot. I think again, speculating, and maybe we'll find out more as we go down. When Hunter came, there would have been, Hunter and Emily, there would have been a sense of a little bit of the fear lifted to now go and venture into the house for the first time. It makes sense, Hunter taking the lead. Hunter opening that door, they may not have literally seen, but they were right behind and perceived and were all experiencing in that moment. So when the dispatcher is on the phone with them, there would have been multiple voices. They would have known at that point what was at least behind that door, but Hunter may not have been fully relaying to the extent of what was going on, maybe to protect them. But everything that would have come from the night before leading, or the early morning leading up, would have been probably coming from multiple people on that dispatch call.
Right. That's how I took it. Like, he's the one who's saying, like, she's unresponsive, and they're making the declarations thereafter of what they experienced from the night before.
Well, and Allie B, can I ask, have you fully followed the case? And I only asked that because of the question that you had asked earlier, because I totally understand when you just look at it from the outside, there's so many holes and things that, like, what do you mean 8 hours passed? What do you mean this, that? But you have to really follow all of it. And when I say that, I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other, versus it's really important to know all of the information before rushing to judgment. There was an insane amount of blood, so much blood that it was leaking outside of the house, Lizzie. But again, the way that dispatchers work, if you're familiar with 911 calls, the same way, think about Sarah Boone. Sarah Boone is relaying on this 911 call. Her boyfriend, she had in a suitcase, left in there last night. Right? Can you perform CPR? At that point, they are 9 out of 10 times going to always send them out as unresponsive. Is this person possible to be saved? Don't know exactly what was relayed on the 911 call. Maybe, again, we're going to get there. But it doesn't surprise me that it goes out for an unresponsive person, because at that point, all that dispatch could possibly know, even if there is blood, someone is down and not responding. They cannot confirm that someone is deceased from the phone. You know what I mean?
I think more of the documents will be telling, probably, of how that unwound.
Right. And think about the layout of the house. It's a hallway leading up to Xana's room. It makes sense if it was Hunter in the lead and maybe they were in the common room, the common area, kind of just a little bit back. Okay. All right. So let's continue. It says that, okay, so hold on. I just want to reread that one paragraph. So Hunter locates the unresponsive body of Xana and informed Bethany and Dylan, call 911. Emily was present at the time, Hunter's girlfriend. All declarants personally perceived the event, Kernodle unresponsive, that specific event. The majority of the declarations were describing to the dispatcher what they were perceiving, present sense impressions. Those statements relate to Xana being passed out and not waking up. The declarations were made immediately after Hunter discovered Kernodle's body. So right after he discovered, these declarations on the 911 call are happening right after the event occurred. But they are all describing their perception of it. Some declarations made would also be considered excited utterances. Those statements include, quote, "Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah," end quote. that would imply it's Hunter predominantly on this 911 call. They saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. So again, they most likely were all talking while he is on this call with dispatch trying to take the lead. But there would have been chaos in the background. Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. As well as the heaving, breathing, and crying that can be heard throughout the call from them. Okay. The declarants were responding to a startling occasion, the discovery of an unresponsive roommate. The statement regarding a person being in the home is in direct response to why Kernodle might be passed out. All statements are made while the declarants are processing what is happening and were made before an opportunity to reflect and fabricate why Kernodle is unconscious. Clearly, the statements of Bethany, Dylan, Emily, Hunter, and the dispatcher, Carolina, fall within the hearsay rule exceptions. I'm going to pause again. What are your thoughts, Shai?
I mean, I think that this first part is kind of setting up the probably it's setting up the emotions that are occurring from this taking place in this event. I think it's also stating that probably like when listening to this call, like an expert is able to determine that these are like real time kind of thoughts that are like popping up in their mind, like as connecting the dots per se, what happened last night. That's kind of what I'm perceiving. But I do know that like the transcript is redacted and it's at the bottom. So I was just kind of processing how this setup is supposed to be, the legalese behind it. You know what I mean? I also think it's trying to assert like a genuine response and reaction as well, because there's been a lot of, I know, speculation too of the surviving roommates, which I do think is unfair to them. But maybe, maybe a little light of this information could help others understand. And I do like to point out that like 8 hours of sleep is pretty normal. So if they went to bed and comforted each other, woke up, and this all started unfolding, like I couldn't imagine what would be going through my mind. I'm sure they were all like talking over one another and just trying to figure out like what could have happened, who was in my home. And I don't know, and if he just saw Xana, like I'm sure they're now questioning where everyone else is.
So nobody passed out. Xana would have been. So in the press conference, the original press conference, the information we got was a 911 call was placed from a surviving roommate's phone, and dispatch went out for an unresponsive person. That is all we had. So the unresponsive person is Xana. When Hunter came and he opened Xana's door, Xana's body was immediately on the floor. Ethan's body would have been more into the left, most likely on the bed. But again, can't state that for 100% fact right now. Most likely, though. Xana was on the floor. So it implies, I don't know if Hunter looked in or pushed open that door and saw Xana laying there, Maybe it was just her feet, guys. I know with the blood, I get what everyone's saying, but we don't know how much he looked, what he said. We don't know. Okay. So there was only speculation about unresponsive person. Who would an unresponsive person be for a quadruple homicide? Because again, people run with it without having all the information. And so people speculated maybe a surviving roommate passed out. And that's why it was unresponsive person. Now we know, no, they saw one person on the ground, unresponsive. That is how dispatch sent it out. What's up, Harley? No, Cookie, we don't have that information yet. They didn't clarify which way her body was, right? No, they just marked on the floor where it was. Okay. So you want to read?
Sure. Judge John Judge has already ruled that the 911 call is not hearsay, i.e., not offered for the truth of the matter asserted. And even if deemed hearsay, the exceptions for present sense impression and excited utterance apply. On August 23rd, 2023, defendant moved to dismiss the grand jury indictment. One basis for that motion was that the 911 call was, quote, improperly admitted, hearsay, cumulative, irrelevant, and an improper.
Sorry, they used the word irrelevant.
I know. And an improper attempt to bolster witness testimony, unquote. In response, Judge John Judge held as follows. Further, even if the 911 call is hearsay, the exceptions for present sense impression and excited utterance apply as the statements made by the callers, i.e., the surviving roommates, Hunter Johnson and another friend who had arrived, were made immediately after Hunter Johnson discovered Miss Kernodle's body and instructed the roommates to call 911. IRE 803. The rationale justifying the present sense impression is that the immediacy of the statement offers no opportunity for fabrication. Also, another case law of finding statements made were excited utterances because victim was still under the stress of the event.
And so pause real quickly. Nowhere. Okay. Even though we're getting some information, please remind ourselves it's not all. And so even the question about where's the blood? We don't know. He didn't see it. We don't know if he didn't relay. I push open the door. All I know is she is down. I see blood. I didn't look the rest of the way. Not all of that is going to be in here. So we don't know if he did. We don't know if he didn't. But again, you have to also give yourself the context. They were summoned, freaked out, and then you push open and this is what you see. Backing the fuck off and calling 911 isn't so out of the realm of possibilities here. But just understand, it doesn't mean there was no blood. No blood was seen. We just don't know yet. We only got the reason that we're having these guys, the reason that we're getting any of this information, guys, is that it's a motion in limine. They're giving reason of why it should be admitted, why it shouldn't be admitted, why it should be included, why it should be excluded. So you have the state and you have the defense making their arguments. The little bits of pieces we get in these arguments aren't because, hey, we want you guys to have all the information. It's because they have to use specific arguments like this line and this text message and this to make their argument based on case laws and Idaho rule. So again, we're not getting the full picture here. We're getting little pieces, and we can't assume this piece doesn't exist, and we can't assume this piece does exist. We have to just look at what we have so far and try to speculate based on the facts that we have so far. But don't assume that we don't or something didn't happen just because we don't see it.
Right. And, Judge Hippler has told them to quit sealing everything. We got trial starting soon. Like, this is going to come out. And, this case has been under a non-dissemination order. So it's also kind of caused more speculation. And some of this may cause some of that for others, but it may give more credence and grace and understanding and hope for justice.
He could have pushed open that door again. And I mentioned Xana's body because it's a factor for me in whether he was even capable of pushing that door open. If he really wanted to, do I think he could? Yes. But we heard earlier on there was trouble getting that door open, not because it was locked, but because we have dead body weight lying behind it. Okay. Not trying to be insensitive. I just want people to take the facts of it and apply it to what we see right now. You already are being summoned, freaked out. Nobody's answering. I believe Hunter probably thought the girls were being dramatic. But then he pushes open, and let's say he had to work to push open. And the first thing you see, let's see, maybe feet. All you know is she's down. Maybe there was even blood. All of that could have been included on that 911 call. It doesn't say it didn't include that. It says specifically it includes their perception directly of what happened with that unresponsive body.
And this is redacted, so we'll get what they give us.
And think about that text message that was excluded right after bro from Hunter to Dylan. Why do you think that is? Because it contains information of what was seen. There's a reason they are not including those yet. Yeah, malicious intent. Or it could have been she is down, there is blood. They're still going to dispatch unresponsive because the only person that can deem someone deceased is a coroner. Okay? You're not going to, you can hear on some dispatch like that they believe that, the person may be deceased, but still they're always going to dispatch more likely than not unresponsive because as far as the dispatcher knows, that is what the victim is, unresponsive. On the floor, not responsive. Take it for what it is and let's not try, and I'm not saying it just to you guys, just remind ourselves, let's not make it into something we want it to be versus there's a person on the floor unresponsive. That is what Xana was. On the floor, unresponsive. Right, and we don't know. It seems like he took the lead, which I respect. He's the one who would have called from, because again, he said to Dylan and Bethany, call 911, but they weren't. It seems like he even had to take Bethany's phone and do that for them. They probably weren't even able to do anything. Freaking out. Who knows what he saw, what he told them, and what he's relaying to the officer, all while chaos is ensuing around him. It would have been chaos. They even say the crying and the breathing and everyone's giving their accounts. It was chaotic, which we knew it would have been. All right. So we have the sealed order denying motion to dismiss the indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct. Regarding the emotion, hiccups. Regarding the emotion in the callers' voices, Judge further held that the evidence was relevant, quote, as to why law enforcement was sent to 1122 King Road on the 13th, as opposed to just EMS when the call was for an unconscious individual. Bam, right there. This testimony was deemed relevant to the effect it had on dispatcher Calvin and was not cumulative of Officer Nunez's testimony. Do you guys understand what that means?
Mm-hmm.
So, why law enforcement was sent to 1122 King as opposed to just EMS? There was more within that call, whether there was someone in the house the night before, blood. There were circumstances being relayed on that call along with the emotions, which is why EMS wasn't only dispatched for an unresponsive person. There were other things being relayed to where police were also dispatched. Okay? I think I'm just insulted that irrelevant was used in regards to this 911 call. I understand Anne's doing her job. I really respect Anne. I think she's great at what she does, but I think between this and the ASD, I'm really just like, come on, man.
I know.
So B, the statements made on the 911 call are admissible regardless of whether or not witnesses testify. Okay, so let's say Emily, right? Emily could be heard on the 911 call. That doesn't mean she needs to testify. That's what they're saying. So under IRE 803, present sense impressions and excited utterances are admissible whether or not the declarant is available as a witness. Any statement found outside of the above exceptions to hearsay are non-testimonial for purposes of a Crawford analysis. Further, even if somehow deemed testimonial, the Confrontation Clause of the Sixth Amendment does not bar their admission. So you want to read conclusion?
Yes, based on above cited authority, the state respectfully prays for the court's approval in limine of the admission of the recordings and transcripts of the 911 call to Whitcomb on November 13, 2022, immediately following the discovery of Xana Kernodle unresponsive at 1122 King Road.
What I will say, I'm likely to believe Xana is all they saw, that they didn't make it into the room any farther, because if it included Ethan, I would have expected to see the inclusion of Ethan unresponsive in there.
Right.
What excuse, Kaylani? Ah, that's that part sealed.
The transcript at the bottom.
Okay. You want to read dispatch? We have, okay, hold on. All right. We have Q, dispatch, Q1, man, Q2, woman. Oh, okay. Man, woman, man. Okay. Woman 1, woman 1. Hold on. Dispatch, man. All right, we know Hunter's the man on all. Woman 1.
You ready?
No, I'm not, because that's a bit confusing. I'm trying to figure out how many voices we're going to hear on this. What? Does that make sense to you? Does this clarify? Because man 1, man 2, man 3, woman 1, woman 1.
It's okay, Q and so I think Q is going to be all of the first responders, whether you got dispatch, and then I think the below would be the officers arriving on scene, possibly.
All right. We'll just try it.
Okay.
All right.
And I tried to find this. I had saved an article at one point, but they had actually interviewed, I think the Idaho Statesman did at the beginning. They interviewed one of the first responders to the scene, and he was an EMS, and he said he never went into the home.
Say
That
that one
he
more
would
time.
that he never went into the home. Like he
The
was held
EMS, right?
right. He was held back by police, and I was trying to find it because I believe the only publication that I found was Idaho Statesman on it. I'll find it eventually, but I thought it was interesting. So it does confirm this. Goes along with it. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's very interesting because you're right. And I forgot about that. Apparently,
You remember
EMS
that?
didn't even make their way. Like they were deemed, the situation was assessed by officers first, and EMS, right? Malicious intent. You remember that, right? EMS didn't even make their way in. I do remember that.
Okay, good. I was like, I know I'm not going crazy. I've read it like several times. Okay. Do you want me to do
No,
dispatch?
Adam. No, Xana was on the floor, Adam. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. 911, location of your emergency.
Hi, something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what. We have
What is the address of the emergency?
1122. No, don't.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
Okay, so now this is Hunter. I'll talk to you guys. We live at the right, so we're right next to them.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
That most likely was Bethany originally who called. So originally, Bethany, hi, something's happening here. Something happened in our house. We don't know what. We have, freaking out. And that's when Hunter takes the phone. I'll talk to you guys. We live at the right, we're right next to them because they did live. And so again, summoned, maybe they walked out. And you're right, Shay, maybe they walked out and got them. But okay, they're asking to repeat the address. And go ahead.
Okay. And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
And she asks again.
Again?
No,
I think
that's her again. They're not asking what's your phone number.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, you mean, he's asking what's your phone number to like Bethany, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
What's your phone number? And then redacted.
What's the rest? Okay. And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates who's passed out and she was drunk last night, she's not waking up. No, we saw. Oh.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Hi.
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone. Stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
Hold on. I don't think it's showing the Q&As on my side. Sorry.
It's not on. Oh, okay. Wait, actually now it is. Okay, wait.
All right, sorry. Okay, so and are you okay? So and then they saw me. And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone. Stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.,
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now. If someone is passed out, can you find that out?
yeah, I'll come. Come on, let's. We got to go check, but we have to. Is she passed out? She's passed out. What's wrong? Ooh,
Dispatching Moscow Law Ambulance for
she's not waking up.
unconsciousness, 1122 King Road. 70 is en route. So it looks like there's 2 dispatchers here. Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, maybe.
Unintelligible, 1122 King Road. All ambulance respond for unconsciousness, 1122 King Road. I copy. Unintelligible, 58. Multiple RPs on the phone advise saying the roommate on scene is passed out and not waking up. Believe she got drunk last night and unintelligible about a male being in the room with them. Unintelligible, being around. That one I copy. About 20-year-old female unconscious trying to get further. Copy.
Yeah, it's Ethan. I think it's. Is that. No. What? Yeah, it's Evan.
I don't think they meant Emily. I think it's Ethan. It's probably.
Uh, okay.
Maybe this is just what the call's picking up. Like,
Yeah, that's
there's
why I
part that's
thought.
missing. Okay. Okay. And how old is she?
She's 20.
20, you said?
Yeah, 20. Here, do you want to talk to M?
Okay.
M? To M, Emily? Or
Talk
talk
to
to M?
talk to him.
But who?
Like
Okay.
like Slane, talk to him.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Okay, sorry. They just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
No.
Okay. Unintelligible en route.
Bethany or Dylan? I need you to talking to them, okay? I can't talk to them. I need you to talk to them.
And they say, okay, hello.
Because
Okay.
is that no, because is that saying Bethany or Dylan states it, but or the voice is Bethany or Dylan. I need you to talking to them, okay?
So A2 is a man. So
Okay.
it's
It's
Hunter is
picking up
A2.
Bethany or Dylan. I need you to talking to them, okay? I can't talk to them. I need you to talk to them.
Right.
Okay,
So
hello?
the other A's are all females. We just don't know.
Okay.
Okay, I have already sent the ambulance and law enforcement. Stay on the line.
Okay.
Is there a defibrillator available? Send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it. Units responding, RPs advising. The patient is not conscious, not breathing. Okay, if there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
We don't have one.
Unconscious, not breathing.
Do you have a defibrillator?
Yep,
Yes, we have one.
but are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go since he's there with you and can help you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, Moscow 46 out, copy 13. I think we have a homicide. Moscow engine 20 is en route, 1370, 70 unintelligible, 107. I relayed it.
Wow.
Yeah, so those other cues were the officers, it sounds like, first responders. You mind blown?
No, because now I'm backpedaling a little bit.
Okay.
It would be lovely if they had. timestamps. I need to go through this again. And I'm sorry, guys, this is the way my brain works. All right. What I believe is Bethany, because it was from Bethany's phone. Hi, something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what. We have, okay, the address. Then Hunter gets the phone. I'll talk to you guys. Where we live at the right.
That's not Hunter. Hunter's A2.
Oh, is that a female A1?
Yeah.
Okay, so Emily.
Yeah, A and A1 are women, and
Okay.
A2 is Hunter, man.
Then that's Emily. I'll talk to you guys. Where we live at the right, so we're next to them. Okay. The address, okay. Then what's your phone number? She gets the phone number from Bethany. Tell me exactly what's going on. One of our, so now it appears A1 is back to, no, but it's still A1. So it wouldn't have been one of our roommates if it's Emily. That's what's confusing me here.
What if okay, what if A1 is Bethany and A is
No,
Dylan?
they saw a man in their house last night, still A1. That's why it's confusing me. These damn, all right, one of our roommates who passed out, she was drunk last night. She's not waking up. Because I'm sorry, the reason I'm getting real hung up on this is it makes a big difference who said it. It makes a very big difference to me who said it, because the difference between Dylan, difference between Bethany, and the difference between someone who was not there to experience any of it, I expect different things. You know what I mean? So I would really like to know who said what. One of our roommates who passed out, she was drunk last night and she's not waking up. Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Are you with the patient? I need someone to keep the phone. Okay. Can I just tell you what happened pretty much? What's going on? Is someone passed out? I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Do you want me to read? Or sorry.
No, I'm just processing and I'm trying to focus on the little bit of information we got, but it all changes depending on who is saying it.
Well, we definitely know based on A1 asking for the phone number, if it's Bethany's phone, that was not Bethany. So A is Bethany. That would be mine.
But the problem is it doesn't stay consistent. Okay, hold on. A1, I'll talk to you guys. Where we live at the right, so we're next to them. That would be Emily, right? It's a woman. A1, Emily. So the address, okay, King Road, A1. A1, what's your phone number? Because it's from Bethany's phone. What's your phone number, Bethany? Okay. What's the rest? Okay. Tell me what happened. That's when I get confused, because A1 then says, one of the roommates, maybe the correction, okay, one of the roommates who's passed out, she was drunk last night and she's not waking up. Oh, and they saw a man in their house last night. So maybe it still is Emily, but she just used R and then switched to the roommates because she was just trying to explain.
I think she's gonna say like maybe one of our friends.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
That would seem natural.
Okay. So one of the roommates who's passed out and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up. Now, why, again, I need to know who that was, because it makes a big difference in the perception of what was happening, and it makes me more at ease to know that this was Emily relaying it and it coming off not as concerned as if it was Dylan or Bethany relaying it, because one of the roommates passed out and drunk, like, come on, like that doesn't seem as intense as I would expect, but it would if it was from someone who wasn't there to experience any of that in the early morning hours. one of the roommates who's passed out and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up, because that's pretty much what probably Emily and Hunter were told. Okay.
Right.
And then you have A, no, we saw, which that's going to be an issue if it's we, if Bethany didn't see anything. Little things like that will be poked at, you know?
Right.
And when I say issue, whether or not it turns into an issue, it's another thing. But I'm saying, like, things like that will be poked. You said we saw, you know, like, but isn't it true that Bethany didn't see anything? It was only you, Dylan, you know, things like that. So that would make sense because, excuse me, no, it's not just she was drunk and passed out. Like, we saw, okay, good. I'm following that. Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. So again, they, another person takes the phone, most likely Bethany, the same way it started with A. Hi. Can I just tell you what happened pretty much? So she's wanting to go back to the 4 a.m. Like, no, not just drunk and passed out and unresponsive. This happened, you know, at 4 a.m. Are you with the patient? I need someone to keep the phone. Can I tell you what happened? What's going on? Is someone passed out? I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m. So I'm curious why Bethany wouldn't know at that point. Is someone passed out? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Because maybe Hutter didn't relay that. It was immediately just called 911. He didn't want to scare them.
maybe.
That's what I'm just kind of taking from it.
All right, so I need to know what's going on right now. If someone is passed out, can you find that out? So, Bethany, can you find that out, Bethany? Bethany, yeah, I'll come. Come on, we gotta go check. But we have to. Is she passed out? She's passed out. What's wrong? Uh-oh. You know what that is, Shay?
Hmm.
They didn't fully check. That is her. We don't know how long, like this once, like what appears to be one sentence took. Come on, we have to go check. Go in there. But we have to, right? We have to go in. Hunter opens that door. Is she passed out? Oh, she's passed out. What's wrong? It's like his face. She probably didn't see. She's watching him.
Well,
And then he probably turned around and.
well, he told them to call after he went in. So
But we don't know what he saw. Like, maybe he didn't go in at all.
What if he did see something enough and he just does a head shake to her to, like, she's like, is she passed out? And he shakes his head, yes.
It seems like they are not aware the full extent of what's going on yet. But the what's wrong at the moment that they're going to check.
They've already checked. Hunter's already checked.
I know, but they have to go check again. Like they aren't.
No, I think that they're being directed to, but he's giving the head shake no, and that stops there. I don't think that they go back up there. I don't think they go back in.
Oh, I think they were already still on the second floor at this point. I think they all went to the second floor.
I don't know. That'll be interesting. I don't think there's enough information to be able to tell at this point.
That's what I was imagining, malicious intent. And they know she's down, but not enough information at all. And that hence why it's, oh, let me tell you, let me tell what you saw. This is what we saw. And then, listen, they need to know, like, actually what's like, go and check. We have to check. Is she passed out? She's passed out. And then, like, there was a shift. What's wrong? Like, more was seen at that moment, like.
Or maybe Hutter's face. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, facial expressions, I think, could be leading this conversation further.
Right. Or we could take it like that. We could take it as, Hunter already understood the extent, but didn't relay it to them yet. And in that moment, she's saying, no, but we have to check. And then like, there was a shift, like, no, she's down type of deal. Like, yeah, I guess we could take it both ways. But I do believe that I just have this feeling that when Hunter, let's say that he came in from the front, and as he went upstairs, I don't know, maybe it's because what I would do, I would be behind him, kind of like you go, like, and I would follow him up, so I imagine they all kind of went as a group, but the girls stood in the common area while Hunter went down the hallway.
Yeah, I perceived it as he'd push the door open and like peek his head in, maybe couldn't fully get it open, saw what he saw, and I don't think that they went back in there. That's just my opinion.
Well, Real 4-4 King, as graphic and as horrific as it is, the theory could be this was very fast. One of the last things heard was the perception of Xana crying. He could have shut the door behind him, and there may have been a little bit of movement towards the door, and then finally dying in a spot that she wasn't originally in. Well, again, Andy, like, I feel like that's silly because I understand when we're looking at it like a fireman, the same way I'm like a vacuum, you're not leaving room for, this was seconds. Intoxicated seconds. If you look into psychology or the way that your brain works, your brain, the same way that we see a face on Mars. Why do you see a face on Mars? Your brain tries to create something commonly known to something that you can't recognize. The same way we will see a face in something that isn't an actual face, but because our brain tries to recognize it to something we are familiar with. Now, I'm not saying he was a fucking firefighter versus the few seconds in mostly the dark, under intoxication and fear and confusion, many things, she saw this suspect walk by her. Do I think she eyed him up and down and got an actual fucking look of what he was wearing? No. Do I think a silhouette type of outline would vaguely be in her mind? Sure. And what does that outline appear like? In her mind, she went for fireman. What that tells me is some type of perhaps uniform-like clothing, like coveralls. It wouldn't necessarily be literally a fireman suit versus how her brain perceived, even maybe in her peripheral vision, not because we know that she looked at his face, which is normally what we look at. The same way it's a vacuum-like object in his hand. It's what her brain that she wasn't looking at directly was able to correlate it to, if that makes sense. And I don't know if I'm doing a really bad job at explaining that, but all it tells me is it most likely was some type of coveralls. And even as silly as that photo may be that you showed me, Shay, right? But at the same time, the handheld vacuum, okay, yeah, it's a little out there with the object that she used to compare it to, but something like, the K-bar itself or something he was holding, for whatever reason, that's what her brain compared it to. Right, Mallory?
It was just kind of like a lot of people when they heard the vacuum type thing get brought up, a lot of people went directly to what an attachment to a vacuum hose would be and how it is elongated with a slant, and then I saw people comparing it to how the K-bar had like a knife slant. And I mean, I don't know why people's minds go to that they do, but I mean, I understand what you're saying though.
I'm gonna
I think people take things very literal, and I understand because that's like my first inkling, but then you got to kind of like clear that up and just be open-minded.
show that photo that you had sent me because it does help get a visual, honestly.
Okay.
And you have to remember the firefighter and the vacuum. It didn't come out on the very first interview. It came out a little after.
Fireman
Which
was the
tells
4
Mhm.
weeks later.
So what does that tell me? That tells me it wasn't predominant in her mind. What was predominant? The eyes. Even in down to the text messages, mask, eyes, right? And then the bushy eyebrows. She was looking at his face. After she's sitting down in an interview and they ask specifically those questions. What do you recall about this? What was he wearing? Do you recall anything in his hands? That is when her mind is going to be trying to pull from that portion of her brain, recalling from that memory, but it wouldn't be vivid. That's like, okay, Mean Girls. And I know random example, but let me explain it to you guys, right? The limits at the end when she is at that math league. Damn, she was too busy looking at Aaron Samuels. What was Miss Norbury writing on that back wall? When you were looking at this, what was she writing on that back wall? That's the best way I could kind of explain it is, okay, you were looking at him, but you have to also, what was on that back wall? Like, you weren't looking directly at it, but can you recall what she was writing on that whiteboard? Now, granted, Lindsay Lohan, the limit does not exist moment, but in reality, Dylan was being asked to recall the hazy background. You know, you weren't looking directly at it, but from what can you recall? And so that to me starts to come into generalized shapes. Generalized shapes, not descriptive or specifics, versus what can she recall from basically her peripheral vision and the sidelines of what she saw. And in her mind, she saw kind of like a firefighterish uniform, which tells me it was more the shape versus specifics, and the handheld vacuum, which, you know, again, would it be something my brain would most likely correlate to that shape? No, but I think of it more as the shape versus literally what did she see? Okay, so let me show you guys this real quick.
I got a honey bun in honor of Wade.
I've never had a honey bun.
What?
Never had a honey bun.
Oh my God. I love you.
I love you too.
You ain't had no honey bun.
I ain't never have no honey bun. Okay. So this was made. And my first instinct was to kind of like laugh, you know, but then I was like, wait a second. As silly as it is, let me recount what I just said. Generalized shape. Not so much he was holding I do not believe he was holding a fucking vacuum, okay? But in her mind, she's looking at him in the face. She's trying to recall a shape from a drunk, stunned few seconds. That is what her mind went to. Is it so ridiculous? Is it really so far out there?
And maybe because EMS wears like some EMS wear like jumpsuits kind of like this. Maybe she associated like first responder as a fireman, like, and they are part of that career technically, right? Maybe that was the assumption. It wasn't like your standard, suspender strap fireman that we're used to seeing. I think you've got to kind of think a little bit outside the box there.
Right. Like maybe it was more so an attachment. Right. Exactly. Shay had mentioned that before too. I think her focus was his face. She was very descriptive about that face. Makes sense. That is what we look at, someone's face. And you have to remember, he wasn't standing there, he was in motion. So it was really a few seconds in a dark, dimly lit area, drunk. I can make sense out of the shapes she felt. And I think with possible coveralls, it seemed more like a uniform and covering. That makes sense to me. Firefighters usually are covered fully. It would make sense with like a coverall covered fully. That's what her brain went to. The attachment, I couldn't think of it like a fucking Bissell, like a actual like that is where my brain was like, oh no. But a handheld? Oh shit, okay. So it could have just had she knew it was holding something, and that's the shape her brain and recollection and memory was able to relate it to.
But
It's
I
not
said
that.
handheld and you gave me shit about it.
I know, but then
Because he had that Bissell like at his house. Maybe it's something totally separate, but
right. No, you did say handheld. I don't know. It threw me for such a loop when I read that vacuum. It really did.
so Woofy kind of brought up a good point when we were talking. She was just like, what if, because I was telling her how you had explained that you were envisioning him maybe like holding it out in front of him, like if it was the knife, because obviously the sheath was
Like that.
upstairs.
That's how
And
I
my
walk with my vacuums, to put it in the closet like this.
and my thoughts were like, if it were a knife, you would know, like for safety procedures, you hold it down, like point, like the tip pointed down to the ground and at your side. So Whoopi was saying, well, he could have grabbed like anything in that home and maybe
Yes.
took it with him to
That's what
like
I said.
not drop blood. And I was like
Yes.
trying to think through, like, could there have been something like that? Because we haven't heard about a trail of blood, or anything of the sort
Absolutely. It
yet.
could have been a bag. It could have been anything that was hanging down. Because that's all I said. If she said like a vacuum of some sort, I would take that as more hanging down. So all I know is that he most likely was holding something that hung down. But what if it wasn't the K-bar? What if it was, like a bag or something he put everything in, hanging down? What if it was something that he didn't feel comfortable leaving behind at the house and took with him? Who knows? But she never said, again, this is just where I want to be very careful, because she didn't say she believed it was a firefighter, Trena. She described what it looked like, right? So it's not she believed it was a firefighter there versus that's what it could look like. That's how she could describe it. I pulled it up, Wolfie.
Hey, Wolfie. Okay, so I will read it. It's off of Motion Lemonade number 7. It says, several weeks after the murders, Dylan thought that the person she saw was a fireman. In her mind, Dylan thought the intruder went out of the back sliding door, but she doesn't know, quote, if he actually went out the back door, unquote. Not visible, or the sliding back door was not visible from the doorway of Dylan's bedroom. That's exactly just how they
Okay, well,
left it.
wait then. Okay, can you read that one more time?
Several weeks after the murders, Dylan thought that the person she saw was a fireman. In her mind, Dylan thought that the intruder went out of the back sliding door, but she doesn't know, quote, if he actually went out the back door, unquote. The sliding back door was not visible from the doorway of Dylan's bedroom.
Okay, so let me go back because I guess technically, yeah, that is what she did say. But the way I perceive it is how he looked. Because of how he looked.
She knew that the man had looked at her because of the bushy eyebrow. I mean, she said all that she remembered is some bushy eyebrow and all black and some sort of mask. That was the sentences preceding the fireman's statement.
Ooh.
I know.
Mm-mm.
Remember, she couldn't even do like a composite sketch. And I think naturally they're going to put emotions of Lene to make sure that she doesn't sit there on the stand and then try to identify him from the stand when she never identified him in a lineup or a photo. I think that those Lemonades make sense. You know, you're just trying to secure that, you know, from happening.
No, Andrea. Dylan's bedroom is on the second floor, which is a ground floor also. But Bethany's room is on the first floor.
And it also says in here, Dylan is the only person alive who is known to have seen the intruder. That's what's quoted in that motion of Lene.
So, come on, let's go. We gotta go check. We have to. Is she passed out? She's passed out. What's wrong? Something shifted in that moment. She's not waking up. She's 20. Here, do you want to talk to them? Hello, hello. They just gave me the phone. Is she breathing? No. Bethany or Dylan, I need you talking to them, okay? Wait, who's A2?
That's Hunter. That's the
Okay.
one man.
And he was the one who's able to say she's not breathing.
Ah, thank you,
Only
Mallory.
him. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
He was the only one. It seems like at that point, yeah, he was the only one who knew the extent of what was happening.
Mallory sent us a vacuum attachment. I just sent it to you.
Oh gosh.
Thanks, Mal.
Thank you.
I was
That's what,
trying to
yeah.
find that.
100%.
I saw a picture like that somewhere and I just couldn't find it, but it had like all the comparisons. But that one with the jumpsuit makes me laugh.
Stop what?
What? She doesn't want to hear us talk about the vacuum thing. Probably.
Stop taking it as a literal vacuum versus how her brain recognized the shape. What? Question, Andy. What did you mean in the YouTube Sheets Discord? The feds are onto you over the Kohberger case and you can't go on YouTube Live anymore.
What?
Did you say that, Andy? Allie. Do you really think the feds are onto you, Andy, over Kohberger case? Okay. ATS asked, where'd it go? Why do you think they didn't release this 911? Why do you think the 911 audio? Sorry, can you specify? Who's assuming what?
What?
Okay. Why do I recognize that account? I don't know where I recognize it from. You mean all this time, ATS, up until now? The N1B1, Wolfie. Why she thought the info should have been kept hush. And I think, you want my honest opinion? Which I'm sure you're going to say yes.
Of course.
Anne is aware he's guilty. And she wants everything. She wanted everything hush hush, even though they made the illusion that they didn't. While she picked it apart over the course of over 2 years now, trying to get everything out. I don't think people realize how much Ann Taylor is trying to get everything possible thrown out, which again, it's her job.
Mm-hmm. She's doing a damn good job.
Mm-hmm. I don't like the ASD, what was in there. And to refer to the 911 call as irrelevant. But I'm aware it's her job. And I think she has been with this gag order, she is not able, while things go public, she is not able to talk on it, control the narrative. So I don't think she wanted anything out there in that, in the meantime. Yeah, she's looking for technicalities. Oh yeah, most likely will absolute BS. Right, C. Taylor. Absolutely. Listen, he was very high functioning. He was capable of running a classroom. Psych student. That doesn't mean that you can't have symptoms or characteristics of the diagnosis, versus to say that he is incapable of even aiding in his own defense with verbally just helping. I think that's a stretch.
I mean, she has her ethics as well,
What happened, N1B1? I don't understand where the chat just went. Like, everything went sideways quickly. No, FOS. The gag order is not lifted. They're just unsealing certain things.
What ethics? Meaning, being as a lawyer, you have ethics that you've sworn to. And there are times where defense lawyers are aware that their client did commit the crime, and they still have a job to ensure that their clients' rights are being legally adhered to in the process. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve that type, the justice through the court system. But yeah, I mean, I think if Anne had information or was aware, I do believe that she would have to, by her own ethics and morals, adhere to that. Do you not, Melissa?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that there's been a change. Hey, Grace, where the first few hearings, it was our client is innocent right now, and it just seems as they had a lot of wind in their sails, and they wanted so bad to get out of Latah County with Judge, and they got the move to Ada. And I think Judge Hippler has been a lot stern in his timetables and keeping them organized and on track for trial. And the Frank's motion stuff didn't go through. Now we're in motions of limine, and maybe as more information's come available, that they're just having to do the best that they can to ensure that she really may believe not believe in the death penalty, and she wants to save his life. And there could also be those other mitigating factors that are beyond our information that we have. I know that the defense had Bryan evaluated, but I do believe that if that goes further, I know the state will have to have their own experts. It'll be like the battle of the experts, and then the court will decide the weight of it.
And mittens for kittens, right? That is a true statement no matter what, right? Look at that. Anne said most recently, BK is innocent at this time, as every person is before proven guilty, right?
Right.
Hi, Psycho.
Hey, El Jefe.
Hey, Jeff.
Oh,
Great, Sarah.
Jeff did a good comparison on his little community post of the Elantra with the new picture that they
Oh.
provided in the Limine. I was going to tell you, I meant to screenshot that and send it to you.
Well, and Callie, they're not offering a plea, right? It's not even about would he take a plea. They're not offering a plea at this time. Now, do I think if they offered? No. No. And honestly, to see the potential jury pool, I don't blame them. Because people already have their mind made up and they're confirmation biased and not even taking the time to go through the actual motions and the facts because they already know what happened. And so I think they have a good chance. I think Anne would. I don't know how to say what I want to say. Right.
I think that the defense has done a really good job of getting the state to a point to show their cards to be able to defend Bryan. And where I go back to, and I know we have emotions and limine on it, is the alibi. That is the beginning for me, because that told me a lot about where the trial was heading and how the defense was moving. Because everything about what I've seen in response is I need more. I know I need more discovery. I need this. I need to know this to be able to tell you where my client did this. Like, I've never heard an alibi where you expect a state's expert on cross-examination to be the alibi for your client. That's just wild. We're 2 years out and you still don't have a firm alibi. That's just really telling to me. And I've also gone through, like, when we said like how much like data there is, my thoughts were that, given some of his experience and interest in cloud-based forensics, like, there's this old little thing that people say to try to overwrite some of the deleted and stored files on devices, like download a bunch of large files like movies and things like that to try to clear some of that. Like, could this have been somebody to try to cover their tracks? And that phone being off during the time, like, look at habitual behavior. If he liked to go out on these, you know, hikes and things like that, was there a behavior that showed that he always turned his phone off, or it wasn't connecting to the network in that time? But now, then that tells me I'm going right back over here to this defense's motion in Limine, whenever in regards to the autism spectrum disorder, where you're also wanting to limit that mitigation of those OCD type behaviors, habitual patterns. Like, I don't know. I feel like, you're something's got to give here, but I do think habitual behavior says a lot. I don't think it is normal for, that phone to be off like that in those times. I mean, I would think if you're out hiking or in an area, you would want access in case of an emergency. What is the reasoning?
Well, and again, don't forget, not only with the trying to strike the death penalty based off an ASD diagnosis that most likely came after his incarceration, she's also trying to get anything and everything thrown out or ever mentioned that can fall within tendencies and characteristics of that diagnosis, i.e., washing of the hands, being a germaphobe, using gloves, separating trash, all of those little things. Like, that is what she's doing, guys. Before trial ever comes, she has been boop, 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 picking, get this thrown out, get this thrown out. You can't use murderer, murdered, murder, none of those in this trial. I'm sorry, what? What? Totally understand not wanting to associate murderer with your client. Got that. But to say that these victims weren't murdered or any derivative from murder, to get thrown out that he was separating his trash and he had gloves on at the time that he was arrested because it's a characteristic of ASD. Come on. Like, she is making those moves. Again, very good attorney.
Yeah, she's a great attorney.
But it's not focused on, let me prove he wasn't there through an alibi, and they went for an alibi defense. Keep that in mind. It is, let me poke holes, which she should be doing, but technicalities. Little here, little there, little this, to where once trial starts, and this is what's, again, interesting about what you will see in a trial versus what you won't see. Take Richard Allen, for example. There was so much that the jury never got to hear because we don't get to necessarily hear everything come trial. Everything needs to be approved. Everything is fought. Everything, motion to strike this, that. And she is picking and chipping away little by little by little by little, to where a lot of this important pieces that we know been following, right? The jury could potentially not know.
Mm-hmm. I just think the chain of events was really telling, because you had Bika Barlow in sitting in the courtroom on the last hearing, the IGG, which is really fruit of the poisonous tree that Anne was trying to like unfold there, right? Everything she tied to IgG. And when that like dismantled Melissa, then immediately like we start seeing um the motions for Prohawk Viche for Bika to come on as the new trial attorney, and now Jay Loxton is technically just counsel. He will not be at trial. I mean, things are moving. She had to quickly shift, but I also think that it goes to stand that right now, I believe the state is kind of pushing the defense of like, you know, from their understanding, this was going to be like an alibi defense, but there's really no alibi. So what
There's
is the
no
defense?
alibi.
Yeah.
There is no, and that's why I can't wait to read the state's response to the what was it? The state's whatever to the alibi.
The motion in limine, yeah.
Yes, because like, excuse me, are we not gonna talk about this fucking alibi? He didn't have to go for an alibi defense. He chose to go for an alibi defense and then gave us no alibi.
2 years and every like reason of we'll have it soon, or we're waiting on more evidence. That's not the way it works. Like usually the way it would work is you provide the alibi before having all of the other information, because like
It's
you
an
need to be,
alibi.
yeah, it's an alibi. They need to kind of stand alone, but also you need to give, just like you want to give the defense a chance to be able to look into and investigate anything, you also need the state to be able to do that for what the defense is doing.
Absolutely. It goes both ways. And you guys, with an alibi, it's being able to prove through a witness or like, CCTV footage, whatever, that you were at a different place at the time that the crimes were committed. They didn't meet any of the points that they needed to met for their alibi at all. They weren't, hey, I know that this is what we need to meet in order to provide an alibi defense, but we're not going to meet any of that, and we're still going to go for alibi. You can't do that. Well, and she had a lot of room, see, Taylor, with Judge. No hate to Judge, but Judge Hippler, I dig him.
So Mallory just sent me something, and this actually is really close to what I've heard some legal analysts just address. It's like addressing the misuse of autism as a legal defense in criminal trials. Did you read that?
No.
It's real short, but this is based out of like Toronto, Ontario. But it says Autism Ontario is deeply troubled by the recent developments in two ongoing criminal trials. So they're speaking out. They said where the defense has cited autism as a mitigating factor in the alleged crimes.
There you
Both
go.
legal.
Sorry, I said there you go because that's exactly the circumstances here.
Right. Both legal teams are attempting to establish a potential defense strategy of not criminally responsible due to autism. This approach follows the precedent set by Justice Malloy and sorry, this is a Toronto one. So autism should not be used as legal defense to evade responsibility for criminal actions. Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition primarily characterized by social impairments and differences in the ability to understand the emotions and perspectives of others. Autism is not synonymous with violence or a lack of moral compass, and it should not be equated with mental health issues. Regrettably, we often witness the oversimplification of autistic individuals, which results in unwarranted stereotyping. Individuals on the autism spectrum, as well as those with other conditions, are more likely to be victims of crime than perpetrators. The notion that autism leads to criminal behavior is a fallacy. All too frequently, an individual's actions are exclusively viewed through the lens of their autism diagnosis, neglecting the broader context of other contributing factors. This approach is dehumanizing and unjust. As a society, we must refrain from associating autism with acts of violence. Instead, we must focus on addressing the various pervasive and harmful ideologies deeply embedded in our societal fabric.
There you go.
Thank you, Mallory.
Thank
Yes,
you,
that is
Mallory.
something what I've heard too. It's also like what I think it was like Law and Crime from today's little snippet they did. And they actually had I believe a forensic psychologist up at the end, Melissa, that I was going to tell you might want to listen to. But they also, you know, say that often people they'll combine autism with intellectual disabilities, not to say that people who are on the autism spectrum disorder, they can have intellectual disabilities, but doesn't they don't coincide together. And so they felt like it was like a stretch that they're trying to roll this under Atkins. That was kind of what they were saying, which Atkins is more specific to intellectual disabilities.
Yes, much more specific. ASD does not fall under that. She's trying to draw parallels to extreme mental deficit to ASD. That you can't. Sorry, but you can't. But also, I just don't like it. It adds to the stigma. I think it's a step backwards in how much awareness has been around ASD and knowledge more recently and a better understanding. And I do not think that they are at all any more likely to sentence him to death if found guilty based on autistic characteristics. No,
Right.
not the same as a schizophrenic episode. I'd be more likely to understand, okay, if there was a schizophrenic outburst, would they perceive them as dangerous, and not understanding and more likely to sentence them to death? I can understand that. ASD characteristics and symptoms, and not the same. It's just not the same.
Right.
Right. He could teach college courses, run a classroom, psych student. No. But she's arguing he is so affected by his ASD that apparently he wasn't even diagnosed with his entire life, that he can't even aid in his defense so much as to verbally communicate with them. That's what she's saying.
And she also threw in there that he's kind of like a germaphobe and wears gloves everywhere. Like
Yeah.
it kind of feels like it's specifically dismantling some, of what,
Evidence.
yeah, evidence that we know of from the search, the search warrants and his arrest and everything that goes with it. It's wild.
And that's all I'm saying, guys, is she knows what she is doing. This is not the first time she is filing a motion to get the death penalty off the table. First, it's causing extreme anxiety. You know what the anxiety and torment it causes to know that you may potentially be up against the firing squad? Didn't work. Well, now we're coming in with an ASD diagnosis. Yeah, give me the date of that diagnosis. Give me the date of that diagnosis. And you are specifically, through this diagnosis, trying to get key points and evidence thrown out.
Well, and you remember how I read that she got, or she requested that she could file 2 more things against, like, excluding the death penalty. So one, we got the autism spectrum disorder, and then today, which I know we won't have time to do, but another time, she filed one similar to what we've heard before, like disclosure violations. So now she's going at the
Of
disclosure.
course.
And
Of
that one's the long
course.
one.
Disclosure violations, dude. Sorry, but tell me you're guilty while telling me you're guilty. When I say that again, my mind is not made up. It really fucking isn't. But everything so far is screaming to me, get this guy off on a technicality. And hey, if they cut corners, and I said this over 2 years ago, I'm likely to believe he's guilty. And if anything, corners may have been cut. And that's going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue. but I believe he's the right guy. So Anne is just going to keep poking little bit. And it may not seem like a lot when you're looking at it one motion in Limine, right? One. No, but when you collectively put together everything that could get thrown out, you're left with a big fucking chunk missing.
Right.
Right. She's doing her job, but oh my God, Mallory, over fucking 2 years ago, me and Shay would get into such heated debates with people because they believed Anne cannot lie. Because I said, even if she knows in her heart he's guilty, she's going to defend him. No. Apparently, people don't realize there's always prosecution and defense. And guess what? Someone is always guilty or not guilty. A lot of times, defense attorneys will not ask their client, but they know. They know. Okay? And everyone's entitled to the right to a fair trial. You don't think Anne, with all of the evidence she has, knows if her client is guilty or not guilty? She fucking knows. She doesn't need to say shit. It's still her job to provide the best defense and create reasonable doubt, even if he is. It's simple as that. But people really fought us and were like, she isn't legally allowed to lie. Okay, you're getting into gray territory there. She is allowed to pose things a certain way to poke holes, to create reasonable doubt. It's not about a lie or not a lie versus you have the prosecution put on their narrative and you have defense put on their narrative, and they're trying to prove two different things always.
Mm-hmm.
But she knows. She knows. Now, whether or not it's that random, case for her that she genuinely believes her client's innocent or he is innocent, I don't know. But I'm sure there are, the handful of times where everything may seem against a client, but the attorney truly believes in their innocence, like Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, you have the ones advocate, like, I know everything seems like they're guilty, but you have it wrong. I'm sure that there's always those cases too, but more often than not, you're going to have the dream team. And they are there specifically to poke holes, technicalities, and get you off because that's their job. And they took that oath.
And you also, too, as a defense, you want to ensure that your client's not being overcharged for crimes.
Absolutely. I can imagine it's a really hard job, morally hard job. But the way I see it, defense attorney, put on your best case. That's why I'm very eager to see how this trial plays out, because I believe both sides are coming to play ball and they're going to fight. And I'm not concerned because at the end of the day, the evidence is going to show whether he's guilty or not. Now, I could be concerned with jurors because I don't trust people, but the evidence is going to be there or it's not going to be there. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
When would you like to get into some of the other state's motions of limine?
Well, I'm not going to be back till Sunday, and I switched the Wade Led till Sunday, so we'll pick whichever day when I come back to do because we need to go over all of the states' response. We have so much. Like, there's so freaking much. Like, look at the screen, guys. And God only knows what's going to be released they unseal it even over the weekend, right? Holy moly.
Well, the state's motions, because they start out saying state's motion in limine, some of them aren't as wordy as the
I'm sure
defense, just based on like me just kind of like opening to see how many pages. But yeah, I am curious about her recent motion to preclude that top new one that you had up there. That's the new one she just filed. And at like the glance, she's like just listing off how much evidence is out there.
Where? Which one?
That top one right there, that's her motion to preclude, yeah. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
like going at it how they did with the Valo Daybell with the disclosure.
Yeah. That's what I said, Natasha. Yeah, I felt bad, but I don't give a crap. Like, we waited so long for this information, and finally it's coming out. Like, this is a big deal. I'm sorry, it really is. Maybe I'll just move Wade to Monday, and we could come on Sunday night still. You want to do that?
Sure, whenever you want to do it. I don't
That
mind.
sounds good to me.
Here,
Um,
I'll drop the link to the Idaho case files for if people are curious. That goes directly to Bryan's.
oh, really, Tish? Yeah. I'll check that out later, but right now my brain has to wrap around even just those two motions, like, so much. Like, my brain really can't process it. I need to take my notes, and I need to write down the times, write down what happened in my own format so I could visually see it. I'm sure you heard like how my brain works. Like, I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. This is when the text goes out, like, okay, so this is what I know was happening at this time. Like, that's how I need to see it in my head. And so I wish I was more tech savvy, but I'd love, instead of physical notes, to have it on the screen for you guys too. I just don't know how to do that stuff. Sometimes I just wish like we could have like I could have my screen be like, and just with my finger, like, just go with where I'm going. Does that make sense? Like a whiteboard type, not a whiteboard, but let's say a chalkboard, because whiteboards give me PTSD. But with my finger, just kind of like draw on the screen, and you guys could see what I'm doing. They have to have that type of availability now. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, remember when we did Moore Murray, we had the Prezi doc, and I know you can create a lot of different templates in like Canva specifically, but there's other software programs too.
Yeah, like a smart board where you just write in real time and you guys could see it. Yeah, the weatherman. Yeah. Me too. I tried Prezi once around the Morimori time when Mallory had done it, but I don't remember what happened.
You liked it.
Did I?
Yeah, you thought it was neat, but I don't think you were like, I'm not tech savvy. I wouldn't know how to do this.
I don't remember. I don't remember. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Peppy style. Not even a few minutes after, right before, actually, like right in that time frame. So it was immediately. There's a lot you can do on it. Very confusing. All right. Well, we'll come back Sunday. I'm not going to be live tomorrow, Saturday, but we'll come back Sunday night, and we'll start on the other half of these limines, the state's response, because we did the defense's motions, and so we got to do the state's response, and I'm really fucking excited. I'm here for it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me up, MJ. Thanks, chat.
No, thank you for coming in for such short notice. And yeah, I'm gonna be absorbing this and processing, and I'll probably post my thoughts on Patreon as we go. But yeah, thank you so much, and I look forward to Sunday night.
All right. Good night.
Good night, guys.